it's Angela Stevens, and I'm the podcast host to Refocus with Angela. I am so delighted to introduce you to two amazing people that you're going to meet today. They are part of the organization Disability In. We're going to learn more about that, but let me introduce both of them to you. First of all, we have Cami Turcotte. She has been with Disability In since 2012, and she's currently the senior manager of supplier engagement. She works with so many people. She works to identify and she certifies disability-owned businesses, and she's also a stakeholder engagement through the Supplier Diversity Program. We're going to go on and on and on about her. But we've also got Philip De Vlieger. And I had to learn that last name, by the way. I've learned it's Belgium, but it's Philip De Vlieger. He serves as the Vice President of Supplier Diversity at Disability In, and he develops and leads the global supply chain and supplier diversity program strategy and execution. These two are both passionate individuals. I could go on and on. We're going to learn more about them. However, I want to tell you how I met them. So I was at a conference, and I didn't know I had this, but I have a disability, and I have two. I'm a woman-owned business, and I actually am certified as well as a Disability In member. So first of all, Cami, Philip, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having us, Angela.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, Angela. Great to be here.
You're welcome. So first of all, I want to just clarify something. Did I say everything right about your backgrounds? Because I know you guys do so much more than that, but that was just a quick recap about what you do. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think, as far as my role, I just work with Cami, really. It's all about working with me.
And I would say the same about Phil.
Awesome. Well,
our titles don't really kind of mean anything.
Let me tell you, these two really they work so well together. And when I was saying that I was actually looking into this, I actually chatted with Philip at a Merck disability conference, which was virtual at the time. And then he directed me to talk to Cami, and Cami explained the whole situation to me about their organization. So it's been the most rewarding and lovely experience of my life. And I am proud to be a part of Disability In. So I want to take a little bit first about both of you and Disability In. A lot of people think, oh, you get disability, you must be paid. And it doesn't work that way. And so I'd love it if we could just take a moment and explain to our audience what Disability In is. So Cami, let's take you first. If you could kind of give us a rundown on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so Disability In, first of all, the disability community as a whole, I think there's a lot of confusion around what that looks like, what that means. But Disability In's a global nonprofit that basically works to educate corporations and entities on disability inclusion across the enterprise. So what that means is we work everywhere from HR to benchmarking to talent acquisition, supplier diversity, and so forth. Everything is really inclusive of the disability community when we look at it from a business standpoint, so business to business.
Perfect.
Philip?
Yeah, I was going to say, Philip, and then tell us your view of that as well in terms of your words.
So Disability In, as Cami mentioned, is an organization that helps our stakeholders, which primarily are private sector corporations and businesses like yours, Angela, to become more disability inclusive within their practices and policies. And a large part of the work that Cami and I do work with companies to ensure that they're inclusive of businesses owned by people with disabilities in their supply chain. So they're buying from these diverse businesses, and we want to make sure that those diverse businesses include disability-owned businesses as well.
And I think you said that beautifully, because if you look at the list of of companies that support your organization. It's large companies like, Merck and, Cigna and, Pepsi. I mean, a lot of large companies, but also the small organizations like myself. I'm a small business, but I have a consumer product in major stores, and there's growing pains, right, with a small business. And being associated with this group has just been so rewarding. I could go on and on and on about that. However, it's you guys do monthly meetings where you will bring in guests and you will interview them, and they give some feedback on opportunities, because it's interesting. You don't realize it, but companies buy a lot of things. We were just on a call yesterday, and the woman that was speaking was talking that we buy, video production, we buy office supplies, we buy, I can't even go on, equipment. There's a lot of things that people don't realize, and they give the people that have the disability and certificate a way to have a chance at getting some of that business. Is that correct? Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And when you talk about those disability-owned businesses and that certificate,
Mhm.
that's the work that Cami does around the certification of those businesses. So that certification is basically a way to validate that that business is who they say they are, right? So when we have large corporations, dedicated to including diverse businesses within their procurement practices, they want to ensure that when they say these are diverse businesses, that they actually are. So that's the reason behind certification. So we certify those businesses that are owned by people with disabilities.
Correct. And, compared to other organizations, we're certified with WeBank. Just to give you a little bit of our audience an example, with WeBank, you have to be 51% owned as a woman-owned business. There's things that you have to do for that organization. It's the same with Disability In. There's a strict criteria of the things that you have to do. But if, it's very interesting. And people, I'll be quite honest, when I looked at joining this, I looked at my staff and I said, that organization is for people who really need it, and why me? And I'll be quite honest, I have ADHD, and I rated as high as my son did, and our company is kind of circled around that. However, which that's not surprising, but however, I also have neurogenic thoracic outlet syndrome, which is a chronic pain from my neck to my fingertips, but no one knows it. And so, what I learned from that is when I called around and I asked people, I'll never forget, someone said, I don't look as disability as something that is visual. That changed my life right there. And then when I asked my staff, I said, I just don't feel worthy of something like this. And they even said, look, you're a great leader. You have a disability, you could learn a lot, and maybe you could encourage some others. Those two statements changed my life and my image of what you do. So first of all, congratulations to having such a great organization. Cami, when did the organization actually start?
Ooh, Philip may have to back me up on this, but I want to say roughly the early 90s, and that actually stemmed out of a president's committee.
Mhm.
So it wasn't necessarily like a federal agency, if you will, but it was like a committee off to the side that actually took form as a nonprofit later on in its journey.
Great. Great. I wasn't for sure about that. I wanted to ask that question. So let me, this podcast is all about focusing, and we're going to nail down on this area. So I don't know about you two, but there are days that I'm not focused. And I'd like to ask each of you, when you have those days, what do you do on a daily basis? Let's say you get up, you're starting your day, and maybe it's an impairment, that you're struggling. Like for mine, if it's chronic pain, how do you focus? Because as I said earlier, as we were talking before the podcast, people that are in this group, we try harder. We have to work harder, right? So how, on your day-to-day basis, just as you're getting up and getting ready for work, how do you both focus and get your day going? I'll ask you, Philip, first.
Oh my gosh. So I can join the ADHD club with you, Angela. So that is one of my non-apparent disabilities, along with multiple others. So my mind is always going, like it's always racing, right? And I'm always thinking. So I try in the morning to kind of step back from that if I
Mhm.
can, and just not focus necessarily on anything.
Mhm.
So that could be, just sitting with my two dogs, having my cup of coffee, watching the news, and then kind of diving into the work that I need to do for the day. But I kind of take a moment to kind of just chill, right? Just calm the mind and the thoughts that are continually racing, on the things that I need to do, and what needs to be accomplished today, what's going to happen next week. I mean, it's kind of constant. But one other thing, and I know you'll love this. I use your notepads on a regular
They're the
basis,
best. That's our
right?
to-do list legal pads, and I'm so happy you like them. But yeah.
So I'm like old school, right? So I like write things down. I don't necessarily go on my computer and like use apps that I probably should be using to organize my time. I have the notes like on my desk, the
Mhm.
to-do list on my desk,
They're
and
visual.
yeah, they're
Mhm.
visual.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm used to. That's what I've always been used to, and I continue to use tools like this, which I think are incredibly valuable for for me.
I love that. I love that. Tammy, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the complete opposite of Philip. I have anxiety, which I've done therapy, I take medication, and I've done some things for. And mine, for me, structure is everything.
Mhm.
So kind of having an understanding of what's going to happen that day, that week. I also have two teenage boys who have incredibly busy lives. So trying to find balance with their schedule and my schedule. So for me, it's getting up early. If I have my teenage boys, getting them out the door and then starting my day. Um, I also am big on exercise. So whether that's going outside for a walk or going in the gym first thing before my day starts, those are kind of things I can control. So that for me is a great way to start my day or week off. So I would say those are big things. I also live and die by my calendars. So for me, my work calendar and my personal calendar are all integrated. And so being able to kind of track what's going on personally and professionally kind of helps me have that piece of control in a chaotic and crazy world that we live in. So I think those are probably my two big things: is exercise and kind of very much having structure to it. But I think as busy professionals, you just know that sometimes things are going to come up. So just trying to have a state of peace, that some days are going to be more chaotic than others when fires arise. And just trying to find, if you need that 5 seconds to kind of step away, take a few deep breaths, and then go back to your computer, helps a good bit too. So those are
I
kind of my
love that.
balance.
I always say sometimes we always get busy. You have to stop, take a moment, and refocus. So I always even have to say that to myself. So talk to me a little bit about your members, because I don't know if you may know this question or not, but what what are your members? What do they struggle with? Because I can tell you what I struggle with, and I got to tell you, I get 55,000 emails all the time. So mine is like managing my emails, but what do other members struggle with? And you may or may not know this.
Philip, do you want to start? Would you like
So
me?
so when you say members, Angela, I'm thinking that you mean like our suppliers, right? Like
Yes, like
companies
myself.
like
Yes.
yours, right?
Yes.
So and we kind of touched on this a little bit ago, around just the whole perception of disability, right? That that oftentimes when people hear the word disability, they think of those things that they can see, like the
Mhm.
person who is blind, or the person who is deaf, or the person who uses a wheelchair. But they rarely think about all of those non apparent disabilities that are part of the disability landscape. So all of our suppliers that are certified with Disability In, including yourself, kind of have this whole range of disabilities and needs specific to their own condition. So it's so diverse and varied among all of our suppliers that are part of our organization, that we are a tight knit community, and I think very supportive of each other. So all of these suppliers kind of understand that there is a place for us, for them within our community, and that they'll be supported because of who they are. And who they are is also their disability. That's a big part of their identity. So I think that's the one cool thing about our community, is that it's so incredibly welcoming and supportive of anybody and everybody.
Tammy, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would say that Philip kind of covered most of it, but I think one of the most important things for me as because most of the work I do is engagement, right? So I'm supporting our corporate partners and our suppliers, is really understanding like when there are challenges for the supplier base, because they're very different from a corporate stakeholder group and a supplier stakeholder group, right? Is understanding where their challenges lie, how we can help support them, advocate for them, and really kind of lend a helping hand. That's really a lot of what my job is kind of talking through suppliers what their challenges are, how they want to utilize their certification, and kind of supporting them so that when they have these, whether they're unique or very common challenges, meaning, is it unique to that supplier based on their disability or disabilities? Or is it something common thread throughout all the small businesses where they're struggling to get a foothold into a potential client or capital, kind of understanding where the nuances are, and then helping, backstop them, support them, and provide a little bit of insight, maybe reframing on how to look at it, how to approach it. And it's almost like a problem solving solution type scenario on a daily basis. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. But I'm going to try and think outside the box to come up with unique ways of approaching a situation to try and, help them kind of either further what it is they're trying to do mission wise, or help them be a little more successful in that area. So I think, again, you're going to have a lot of similarities with small business, because we hear a lot about needing capital, needing connections with networking. But a lot of our businesses have unique disabilities where it's a cognitive or neuro-based situation. And there are certain things like too many graphics in an email. So like for me, I try to keep everything very plain Jane, very non-HTML text-based, just so that it's not too overstimulating for those people who it does affect in that way, shape, or form. So little things like that can go a long way. But I think, again, as Philip stated, with such a diverse community, it's really kind of hard to put everything in one box. Is the biggest challenge per se.
Right. I agree. And also one thing, if anyone is interested in being a part of your organization, I would first say that you two are always available. There's never been one time I've called you and said, do you have a minute? But it's either that day or the next. You always are so helpful. But I want to clarify something. Not everyone can do this. And we're very fortunate if we're able to be a supplier. But in terms of that, can you tell us the requirements? Because I know you have to have a physician's letter stating this. You can't just say, hey, I have this. So walk us through a little bit, like if there's someone that's interested in being a supplier, first of all, what do they need to do to apply?
Yeah, I'll take the lead on that one. So I know you know this, Angela. The standard really for diverse owned business certifications is 51% operated, owned, managed, and controlled. Those are really kind of the 3 or 4 main bullet points when somebody's interested in certification as a whole. With our organization, person or persons that are applying that have to comprise, that 51% or more stakeholder have to have a disability or disabilities. So it doesn't have to be one person, it could be 2, 3, 4 that make up that majority ownership, but they have to be able to document that disability. And there are a number of ways to do that. The physician's form that you mentioned is one of them. For service connected veterans, they can submit their disabilities ratings letter along with their DD-214. We have state and federal level type of documentation we accept, Voc Rehab, We have 5 or 6 options roughly. So there are opportunities there for businesses to apply if they have like a diagnosis that happened due to a learning disability back in school. They can submit their IEP, right? Because that's not something that's going to be diagnosed later on per se.
Yeah.
So things like that they can utilize to use within their certification when we talk about documentation of disability. They also need to be a permanent resident, permanent resident or citizen of that country they're applying in. So we're also actually certifying outside the US now. So if they're coming to us from like the UK or India or Canada or one of those other markets, they would just need to show documentation around their citizenship or permanent residency. And then we're also going to want to make sure that they're headquartered in that country as well. So those are really kind of the 3 main bullet points if a company is interested in applying that they would have to hit. And again, that is the standard, whether it's women owned, disability owned, minority owned, LGBT and so forth. So it's not something that we're doing that's any different than any other organization is.
Okay. So now let's flip that just for a second. If there's a company that wants to support disability in, what do they have to do that? Because there may be companies that say, I love this. I really want to support disability in, and I know you'd love to talk with them. What do they need to do to go about doing that?
I think from a corporate partner standpoint, so these are the other stakeholders besides those certified suppliers that we serve. It's a matter of becoming a partner with Disability In at whatever level they wish to become a partner at, and based on that level, kind of provides them with different benefits, throughout the year, and certainly at our annual conference. So it would just be a matter of getting engaged with us and helping us advance disability inclusion within not only their company, but the whole business community.
Wonderful. And then in terms of your suppliers, so talking to the partners or the partners that are coming in as companies, but the suppliers, I always say it's the hardest working group I've ever met in my life. Would you have anything to add on to that, or does that sum it up right there?
It is a hard working group, I will tell you, and also innovative and nimble and agile and ready and willing to solve problems. Because as individuals with disabilities, we've always tried to, throughout our lives, navigate a world that may not be designed for us. So we're always coming up with solutions that help us to navigate. And the same would apply to a business owner. They're always looking for different ways to solve a company's problem. And I think that's what sets us apart from other small businesses, is that we have that exceptional, innovative ability because of who we are.
I love that. And I want to add on to something because I met several members. I would say that they're always helping others. They're always helping each other, because I noticed that in our meetings, they'll offer support to someone. But they also, because we've all had our challenges in one way or another, and we have empathy for other people. Because I was walking, I'll never forget, I was at a WeBank convention and someone asked me if I was going to the Disability In conference. And at that time I didn't know. And she said, well, I'll be there. And she said, you probably don't know this, but I'm deaf in one ear. And you would never know that. And she was so kind and so supportive. That just shows you the spirit of your organization, which is so wonderful. And I really do love that. And it's great. They don't overload you. You have meetings every month. You can go. If you can't go, they send you a recording. I could go on and on and on and on. And they really try to help you, whatever you're struggling with as a business owner. It's hard enough to be a business owner, right? It's got its own challenges, and they just might have a resource that's a member or a partner that they can go to, that they can get some help, because really you've got some great people that want to be a part and want to help. What have I forgot? There's so much about your organization that is going on. What's new right now and in terms of what you guys are doing? I know you have an annual conference, right? I know you guys attend a lot of different conferences, but anything new that's going on that people should know about?
Oh goodness. I guess I'll try and feel this one. I would say right now, kind of the name of the game is growth. Our organization as a whole, our supplier diversity program, which is where our suppliers sit and a lot of our corporate professionals sit, is growing immensely. Not just from a partner standpoint or Adobe standpoint, but our footprint is growing outside the US, which is huge. It's
Huge.
a process, right?
I didn't even know that. So that's great information.
Yeah. We're currently in India, UK, Canada. And then I think the plan is, and Philip will correct me if I'm wrong, is to head into South and Central America, Asian Pac, and Australia, I think.
That's
So there's some very large
that's some
nuance.
big news. That's some big news. Big news. Yeah. And that's awesome. And I just want to make a comment. In our business, we're getting ready to do something really exciting. I'll mention it here in just a minute, but we're going to be with Good Morning America's online portal in a few weeks. And before we started this podcast, the first thing that Cammie and Philip mentioned was, when is that happening? Which is October 23rd. But when is it happening? Because we really want to help get that out. And that just shows you right there the spirit of not only the organization, but the people who run it. And I think you both deserve so much credit for that. And I just can't say enough great things about that. But I have one last big question for both of you. And I'm going to start with you, Cammie. All right. So, we all get nervous and we all get, we're not focused in life or whatever. But let's say you have to go present somewhere and you have to talk about either your career or disability in or something. But it's one of those days you're just not yourself. But what is it when you get in your car and you're driving to that meeting? What is the song or the genre or the type of music that you listen to that gives you game on?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say right now it's probably anything by Chris Stapleton, but he's got a song out called White Horse right now that's pretty strong, and it kind of gets you going. So I would say that would probably be my song. Or if I had to pick an artist, Chris Stapleton. But that's probably it for me.
I love that, and he's amazing in concert. In concert, I saw him, so he's really good. Yeah. Okay, and Philip, what about you?
Oh, it's so hard. So my taste in music is wide ranging, right? Like I like.
I know you like hip hop, right? Is that right? I'm joking. I asked you that before.
but kind of, yeah. Like I appreciate like a lot of different music.
Yeah.
But I kind of grew up in the 70s and appreciate, bands like Queen. Obviously Elton John was a big part of the 70s. And even looking back at like the 60s and the 50s, I can appreciate that kind of music. So, like, I don't know, the Supremes.
Yeah. These boots are made for walking.
Right, Nancy Sinatra. These
love it, love it,
walking. I love that. So I can appreciate all of that. But if I need to kind of like focus, it's not necessarily with music. Currently I'm typically tuned into like the news channel on my radio, just to be sure that I'm in tune with what's happening in our world. And then traffic, that is often, part of that, broadcast. So it's important.
Definitely.
Especially in the DC area, knowing where the traffic is.
And the news, I mean, it gives you up on what's going on in the day, especially if you've been busy somewhere else and you're not focused and you want to be on top of it. It's something where it brings you around. And it's interesting because you said the 50s and the 60s. I just have to ask you if you know this song, because I had to look it up on my playlist.
Yeah.
Do you know Dodie Stevens?
No.
Oh,
I think I do.
oh, so
Do-
my
do-
mother, Dodie Stevens, I think it is. You can look it up. It's called Pink Shoelaces. My mother loves it. We have to listen to it every time, and it's a hoot. So there you go. There's your tips for the day. Anyway, but both
Okay.
of you, like I said, I think you're both amazing. I think the organization is phenomenal. I have owned a 30-year executive search firm prior to starting my business, Refocus the Creative Office. And let me tell you, if I had known about you when I had my other firm, and I still have it, but when I knew that, I would have joined in a minute, but I didn't know about you. So I hope this podcast helps you to attract even more people that can be helped. And let me tell you, if you're listening to this and you're on the fence, take it from me as a supplier. It's the best decision you will ever make. So thank you both. We will put all the notes in our podcast. So if you're interested in learning about it, they are Disability In is a nonprofit organization. So I know that they would love your support in any way, whether it's funding or whatever you can do. If you're a business, you want to support the company, check that out. We will put all of that information out there for you. But Cami, Philip, thank you so much for doing this today. We're so gracious for your time.
Thank you so much, Angela. It was great.
Awesome. Thank you both. You're perfect. Look at that. You guys are genius. You're freaking genius. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, Philip, you need to send the check to 4011. I'm joking. No. No, all my comments were so genuine. They really are. So okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so you're not done. All right, hang on. So the next part's so easy. It's so easy. So I'm going to introduce you. It's our, so you just, so you know, it's refocusedcareers.com/podcast. It's all in career. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take you both, feel free to jump in between each other, but I'm going to talk to you about, you know, how you got on this path, what made you go here, and what, you know, just a little bit about that. Okay. So my producer likes it when I can just go into this. So if you do you have a few more minutes so we can do this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Okay. And we'll let me just take a drink.
Cami, you can go first. I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's hard.
You guys did great. By the way, you did great. Really quick on Queen. That movie is my husband's favorite movie. Okay. He
Really?
loves that.
God.
I love Queen.
So do
And then my son, crazy enough, you know, he's got ADHD. He's 22. His favorite music is the 70s and the 80s.
I love it.
Don something and Hall Oates and all that, you know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Daryl.
All I know.
Loves that. And then Charlie Puth is his favorite, but he knows, and you know, and just interesting enough, when he was bored in school and he wasn't doing very well, he loved music. He didn't know the 70s and 80s music. And so what he would do is he would listen to it and memorize all the words. And that's how he got through his classes.
Wow.
Like it's easy to memorize the words of the 70s
Mm-hmm.
and 80s. You know what I mean? Like you can understand them. Like,
yeah, but his mind goes.
The challenge I have with hip hop is that I don't understand what people are saying.
His mind goes 20 miles an hour though, and he needed something to keep him calm in class, you know. So anyway, yeah, we're working on a fidget toy. You guys all, I should share it with you. You'll love it. Anyway, you know me.
Cool.
You know, I wake up every day and I go, oh my God, to my husband, I'm like, I had the best idea ever. And he's like, honey, can I just have 5 minutes? Just like 5. It's kind of funny. So,
Just
right.
5.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's Angela Stevens with the podcast Refocus Careers. You're going to learn something so interesting about 2 individuals that have joined us today. They work for a nonprofit organization called Disability In. We're going to tell you more about that in a minute, but I'm going to introduce you both. So today we have Cami Turcotte and we have Philip DeVlieger, and we're going to go into each one of those. So I'm going to go first with Cami. So Cami, you've been with Disability In since 2012. I'm going to talk to you more about your background, but I want to go back. When you went to college, got out of high school, college, whatever, what did you want to be at that time?
Oh boy, you're going to love this. This is a complete 180 from what I do now. I actually wanted to be a forensic psychologist. I wanted to work for the CIA, FBI, or Secret Service and study mass murders, serial killers, all that great dark stuff.
You know, that must be why I like you. My husband watches Forensic Files every night and watches the airplane crashes, and I'm forced to watch that. So anyway, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So my children think I have a very deep warp sense of, but it's just very interesting to me. So that's actually what I went to school for. My life took a different trajectory, and I would say that I worked for several law firms before I landed at Disability Inn. Lost my position when I was living in Northern Virginia at a law firm, and had extremely young children at the time, could not find daycare to save my life, and needed something that was flexible or remote. And interviewed with Disability Inn, and the rest is kind of history. I've been lucky enough to work with Philip in different like kind of iterations over the past, 12 years almost, which is insane. But yeah, it just, I think with life, sometimes we do it backwards. We don't know what we want to do, or we know what we want to do, but then life always kind of has different plans. So I personally have just learned to kind of be at peace with trying to control my life's path, that it's going to make its own plans for me, and I'm going to show up, and it'll all work out, even though it doesn't seem like it at the point in time.
It will. I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, though, because I was a 30-year executive recruiter, and I dealt with a lot of people who lost their jobs. And when you lose your job, it's like you lose your identity, right? So when you lost your job and were making a change, for any young adult or any, adult that's gone through that, how'd you get through that?
It was a very unique situation. I'll just say that. I personally hadn't done anything wrong. Unfortunately, the person that I was working for directly at the time was in some legal trouble related to his position at that job. So for me, it was more so kind of just like understanding where all this was coming from, because I was completely blindsided. Once I got over that part, I kind of had to refocus. I had a spouse at the time who had a very demanding job. And so my career needs kind of took a back seat, but it was part of my identity and something I had to have for me personally. Not necessarily from a monetary standpoint, but more as an identity standpoint. And so it was important that I found something that allowed me to kind of spread my wings, but also be present for my children, because they needed at least one parent at home that was there and stable, while the other one was kind of, for lack of a better word, globetrotting around the world.
Right.
For me, it was kind of just finding something where I had that work-life balance. And that's very hard to do in today's world, because I feel like we're really kind of, and I feel very lucky for where I work at and my work family, because I have such balance, but a lot of places don't have that kind of balance. And people are really kind of felt like almost, and I hate to use this word, but slaves to their jobs, right?
Yes.
Because they don't have a choice. You're always tethered to it. So for me, I got extremely lucky when I found what is now Disability Inn, was USBLN at the time. Again, we have a fantastic work-life balance. We've got great work family, and it's really an amazing place to work.
Awesome. Awesome. So, okay, let's jump to you, Philip. All right. So Philip, he serves as the Vice President of Supplier Diversity at Disability Inn. I'm going to let you go back to those college years. What did you think you were going to, I can't wait. You're laughing. What did you want to be when you were in college and thinking that you had it all figured out?
It's been so long. So,
can someone do some research on his background? I'm joking.
Right. So I wish I could say that I had this plan that I followed and it worked out just perfectly. And I'm here because that's what my plan said I should be doing, right? Never. And I think Cami touched upon this, trajectory kind of concept, because that's kind of what's happened. I went to college thinking that I would be a CPA. Believe it or not, Cami,
look at us, we're both going seriously.
Right?
Wow.
Wow. And then, when I
were you good with numbers?
Well,
that would be important.
It would be, but when you had, I could not pass calculus to save my life. Could not pass that, but I had like, what does calculus have to do with like accounting? I don't
Right.
know, but I couldn't pass it. So
Did
like,
you
I
have,
gotta,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you have family members that were in that field?
no, no,
Okay.
I was just kind of like in high school. I got interested in accounting. I was good at it in in high school, and then thought, yeah, this is what I should be doing. So, needless to say, I kind of like did a little reevaluation of what I was good at, right? So a lot of people think that, oh, I need to find something that I'm passionate about, right? But not really. You need to find that thing that you're really good at, and then that translates to passionate about, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I loved design, interior design. So I changed my major from business, from accounting, and I switched it to interior design, and that's what I wanted to do. And coming out of college, I think it was during the Gulf War, and the economy was struggling. You know, design wasn't necessarily the arena that everybody was jumping to.
Yeah.
So, I just happened to land in an HR role with a large corporation, multinational corporation, and loved it. Loved it. Became a recruiter, Angela. So I was on college campuses recruiting great talent for our company. Loved it. And then it just so happened that one day, somebody approached me and said, there's this opportunity in supplier diversity that we think you would be really great at. And maybe think about that. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's kind of pursue this. And I did.
One of the best jobs ever, actually.
Right? Like, it was terrific. It was, and it was, it seemed like every step that I took kind of prepared me for the next step. Right? So the recruiting aspect prepared me for engagement on the supplier diversity stage with corporate partners and with suppliers. So it just made perfect sense, and I love what I do, and that's when I became engaged with Disability In from a corporate standpoint. So we were on the other side. So I worked with Cami through that relationship. And then when I left my corporate role to launch my own business, I still remained engaged with Cami and the work that she did. And then here I am today leading the effort around supplier diversity. So I just like, it's something I never mapped out. But like I said, every kind of step along the way made sense to my next step.
I want to make a comment about that because people don't realize what that is. But I always say supplier diversity, they are your cheerleader. They are the person that finds out what you do, and then they will get you to the right department. It may be 3 different departments. They will make it happen. I've had to explain it to my staff and tell them, look, it's like the point person for the company. And I'm so impressed. And I never knew. I've been in business for over 30 years. I never knew what that role was. So I think that's really interesting. And the fact that you came to Disability In, I think is just amazing. So that's really interesting. And I want to make a note. There's research that's done that says that most people who graduate college, they changed their careers 3 different times. And for myself, Philip, it's interesting. You and I have a lot in common because I was going to be in media, in broadcast hosting, journalism kind of thing. And I kind of am now, but back then, it was like early 90s, and everybody was laying off. I got laid off for 3 jobs. My first 3 jobs, I got laid off, and I went, to heck with this. I wanted to do something really great. And I wanted to make money. And so that's when I got into that field. And that's a hard field. Recruiting has its own challenges, but that just goes to show you have to be flexible and open-minded to do this. One question I want to ask both of you: working for a nonprofit, it might be for CASA, it might be for the American Diabetes Association. Can you explain to our audience, one of you, just about the differences of working for a nonprofit versus working for a corporation? Because a lot of people that listen to this podcast are younger adults who are thinking about new careers. Can you explain that a little bit?
Philip, how do you want to do this?
I'll jump in. So,
Yeah.
a lot of people have this preconceived notion that if you work for a nonprofit, you're less talented,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't require the level of skills that it may require, working at a large corporation. I would say to that, it's almost the opposite, that you really have to have the skills that you potentially would gain through a corporate role,
Yes.
but even more so. And I would say that it is very closely linked to, Angela, owning your own business
Mm-hmm.
to some degree. That you're a smaller team typically, and you're doing a lot of different things within the organization. You're not just, focused on one specific task, but you really do have to have the ability to multitask and to work in all different areas within the company. So a big difference, right, between that and a corporate role.
Yeah.
I would, and some roles are meant for some people and others for other people. So, it's not necessarily meant for everybody, but it really kind of, if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, when you work for a not-for-profit, you have to have some empathy. You have to care about people, and you have to care about the cause and why you're there. It's not just a job.
No.
I was a volunteer on the CASA board for 12 years, which is court-appointed special advocates that help children in foster care. And you've really got to have a passion to help people. And I think that's the same way with Disability In. You are going to be able to catch Cami and Philip both on our Refocus with Angela podcast. So check them out there. But before we go, I want to ask, if you don't mind, I know Cami's losing her voice a little bit, but for people that don't know what Disability In is, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment and just sharing that with us, that would be great.
Of course, happy to jump in. Disability In is a international nonprofit organization that helps companies become more disability inclusive within their operations across their entire enterprise. So whether it's including people with disabilities in your hiring strategies, helping people with disabilities around accommodations within your company, accessibility in your supply chain, ensuring that we have disability-owned businesses in your procurement practices. That's what we do. We empower business to become more disability inclusive.
Awesome. And I am a member of the Disability In group. I have 2 disabilities. I have ADHD and neurogenic thoracic outlet syndrome. And so I want to say it's one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. But I will say this, for whether you work there or you're a supplier or a partner, it is what you make of it. You can be a very quiet person, not get involved, and what you put into it is what you will get out of it. I would say that. And let me tell you, I love your organization. It's the reason I called and wanted you both on here. But I think you both have great careers, and it just shows you how the path that you took wasn't the path that you planned, but what a blessing it is for so many other people that you're in the roles today that help people like myself.
Thank you,
So,
Angela.
You're
great.
welcome. Thank you both so much for being on our podcast today. Like I said, this is all about careers, learning different paths. We'll put a link on there if you want to support this organization. They are a not-for-profit. I know they would appreciate your support, and also some information in case you want to apply to be a supplier or a partner. We'll put that on there too. But thank you, Cammie. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Angela.